down to the end worker. Now, it would help you to know that there's an ISO standard out there, and sometimes in these models, you will see somewhere right in here, you'll see this ISO 9000. And many companies actually put into place certification processes to adhere and get certified with the ISO 9000. The ISO 9000 is a series of standards that's often used to develop, define, assess, and improve quality systems. Remember the big picture here. We're talking about service management, specifically IT service management, and one of the main components of that is quality, making sure you deliver quality services. And some organizations and sub-businesses demand that their vendors or their suppliers or their strategic partners hold some type of certificate. The ISO 9001 or ISO 9002 certificate to prove that they have adequate quality systems in place that have been regularly assessed by an independent ISO 9000 auditor. So the ISO, as you can see here, this is their website, the International Organization for Standardization. And what we're looking at here is the ISO 9000 and 14,000, which are closely related. This is a good website that you might want to add to your favorites to go in and just get a brief understanding of the basics of ISO 9000. And this is pretty cute, the magical demystifying tour, because a lot of companies have to put this in place, small to medium-sized enterprise organizations, to make sure what? Well, that they've taken the right measures to provide the quality that's been agreed with their customers. Again, with service level targets, service level agreements. Mechanisms so that management can assess the operation of quality systems. Making sure that the supplier's procedures are documented and communicated, recording customer complaints, dealing with them in a reasonable amount of time, and then improving the services wherever possible. Now, the ISO certificate that's given out doesn't give an absolute guarantee, but it does indicate that the supplier is taking quality assurance seriously and is ready to talk about it at any time. For example, here's a blatant example in Japan of a fish supplier that actually has in large letters up here on the outside of their building ISO-9001, advertising that, hey, look, we are ISO 9000 certified and we're ready to show you the results of auditing and investigations that have been done to make sure that we're providing quality assurance. And this is an example of a fish market and really a product, but this can apply to IT services as well. Now, just a while back, I alluded to how service management has to tie into the overall corporate policy. And in this diagram here, we show the relationship between the vision of the organization, the company's objectives, and policies. We want to relate this to IT service management. Most organizations are going to have a vision, okay? What's the overall goal? Maybe it's to sell custom-made NFL football team thermoses on the internet. Maybe you're a training company like CBT Nuggets. So whether you're a fraternity at a small college all the way up to a multinational corporation, you're going to have a shared concept of why you cooperate in this organization. That's your vision. Then that'll lead to what we call a mission statement. And the mission statement is typically a short, clear, written description of the objectives of the organization and the values that it believes in. These are usually either printed out and given to each new employee, or they may be posted somewhere on a wall as you walk into the building. A mission and objectives tie hand in hand, but objectives basically describe in greater detail what your vision and your mission are. Good objectives are going to fall into the category of SMART. Get smart, okay? Remember Maxwell Smart, that TV show from the 60s? Get smart? Well, your objectives should have 5 essential elements. They should be specific, they should be measurable, they should be appropriate, they should be realistic, and they should be bound by time or time bound. This SMART essentials is a well-known attribute of corporate objectives. Then this is all going to lead the vision, the mission statement, and the objectives are all going to relate to the overall governing policy. This is the combination of all the decisions, all the measures, all the actions that are taken to define and realize vision, mission, and objectives. Now, these may change over time. Circumstances change, mergers, buyouts, alliances, changes in the marketplace, but the clearer the policies of the organization are to the stakeholders, the less they need to be worried about the day-to-day aspects of how people in the organization are going to get the work done and achieve those goals. Policies are used as guidelines. And again, we're talking about policies here under the umbrella of IT service management. Now, how do we get to the results of these specific policies? Well, lots of planning. Lots and lots of planning. This means dividing it up into different phases or stages, and this is where time comes into place. This is often done with project management. This involves planning for the quantity of resources needed and the quality of resources needed and cost versus revenue. All these things come into play in the planning process. There's various methods for measuring the planning all along the way. You've got what's called BSC, or Business Scorecard. With BSC, the objectives of the organization or the processes are going to be used to define CSF, or critical success factors. And it's the achieving of the critical success factors that dictate the score on the scorecard. CSFs are a number of areas of interest or perspective, things like personnel, innovation, research and development, finance, market, customer support, those types of things. The indicators that dictate the critical success factors are often referred to as KPI, Key Performance Indicators. And these can be subdivided or broken down into smaller performance indicators. So these are the four elements of planning. These two go together, cost versus revenue. Sorry about the bullet point there, but you've got planning, where time. Time is the easiest thing to determine, okay? The start date and end date, divided into phases or stages. Quantity, the objectives in measurable terms to monitor progress. The quantity of resources needed. Quality, the quality of the deliverables, the results. This is based on your service level agreements. And cost and revenues. The deliverables, the service deliverables must be in proportion to the expected costs, the expected revenues of the organizations. And that leads to specific tasks and actions that ultimately implement the processes. And this is the vision, objectives, and policies, leading to IT service management processing. Well, as we saw from the previous diagram, the entire vision and mission statement and objectives and policy all leads to processes, or the implementation of processes. W. Edwards Deming said, if you can't describe what you're doing as a process, you don't know what you're doing. Now, how do we define what a process is? Well, here's an official ITIL definition. Process is defined as a series of related activities aimed at achieving a set of objectives in a measurable, usually repeatable manner. It defines information inputs and outputs, consumes resources, and is subjected to management controls and policy over time, cost, and quality. So process management is also referred to as this phrase, which is manage to process. Previously, we've established the why. Okay, that's the mission, the vision, the objectives, the policy. That's the why. The process management, or manage to process, is the where and the how. Where do we want to be as an organization? Where are we now? Assessing the present state of the organization or the company. Then how? How do we get where we want to be? That's involving processes. And how do we know that we've arrived? That's what we call measurement and control. And this measurement and control is really management, and it's done all along the way, and we measure with what are called metrics. quantifiable indicators, performance indicators, day-to-day controlled based on baseline data that should have been established in the beginning. Now, when we look at processes, we always have to look at processes under the umbrella of its relationship with other processes. I mean, think about the relationships of processes in delivering a CBT nugget, for example. You have subject matter experts that are using hardware and software to deliver modules. These modules go to CBT nuggets to quality control. You've got quality control processes, you got technical editing processes, and then once it gets through that process, it moves to the transfer of the information, the digital information, to database. You got database processing where you take it in its format on the database, convert it to a DVD format or maybe a streaming format. Then you involve other processes like sales, customer service, billing, legal services to make sure, for example, that the content is not pirated on places like eBay, for example. You've got the shipping processes. You've got the human resource processes for the organization itself. So as you see, this whole IT infrastructure and service management is interrelated. It's an interrelated organism. And you have relationships between these processes. It's input and then process ownership, process management, process operatives, and then output. Let me give you a little diagram here. First of all, we have input. Let's think of input as the services we're providing as an IT service organization or department. And we're inputting this service into this process, okay? So the process has to be managed to get to a defined objective. And of course, underneath, or I guess surrounding all of this, is quality. So we want to keep that in mind all the time. Quality and efficiency. That input is going to become what we call actions. And we saw this earlier in that flow chart. Actions or functions. Of course, the actions and the tasks are going to lead to implementation. I'll just put implementation here, and that is the output, okay? The output. Now, part of managing this process and these processes that work together is measurement, okay? Measuring all along the results of these processes, controlling these actions and these processes, monitoring, logging, assessment, okay? Now, what defines how we measure, how we control, how we assess, how we implement quality and efficiency into this organism? This is done using policies, okay? Policies, standards, guidelines, I'll put GL there, all generated from the vision, from the mission statement, from the objectives, you see. And this is how ITIL delivers such powerful results. It gives us a framework under which we can implement these specific processes. This ITIL approach forms the foundation for IT service management and service delivery. Let me show you a generic ITIL process model. Here's a better example of that kind of generic process model I was alluding to earlier, where we have input that comes into our established set of processes, process activities, functions, and sub-processes. What might some of those be? Well, they might be help desk, or service desk, or customer support, or technical support. The input obviously being questions and queries or complaints that come from an end user or a customer. Of course, the output should get us to our goal, which is continual improvement and adding more to the bottom line. These processes, these functions, these sub-processes don't work in a vacuum. We have to enable these processes with components. We have to control and manage these processes. So first of all, we have the components that actually enable processes. And that is the fact that individuals in our organization are going to serve particular roles. For example, they might work on the tech support system, the help desk. They may be in management, middle management, customer service, and then all the resources that it takes to deliver quality. And of course, these roles and resources, there may be departments, can be working together to meet all the aspects of customer demands. Quality, availability, capacity, cost, and stability. These resources can be people, they can be software, they can be intellectual property, they can be hardware, it can be money and time. These are the things that enable these processes. And then of course, we have the elements that control the processes, and that are the parameters that lead us to getting service quality